It is telling me that an error occurred. Oh, there we go. All right, guys, we are live. Today is episode number 8, and we are with Isaac Schwadel talking about insurance in a special lunch and learn time slot today because we wanted to make sure that people were able to log in and take notes and come back and look at this over the weekend because we're already 6 weeks into the year. So, how are you doing, Isaac? Welcome.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Gloria, and happy to discuss everybody's favorite topic,
It's the
insurance.
best topic.
But yes, like you said, it's we're already a couple of weeks into the year, and hopefully people are hitting their goals. And insurance definitely, in some ways, can help you hit your goals depending on the situation. So glad to share a little bit of what's going on in the market and what I know, and hopefully people can, like you said, take notes, come back, reach out to us if they have any further questions, and let's go.
Yeah, so for the folks that don't know Isaac, number one, if you are watching us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, please give us a thumbs up so that we know that folks are tuned in. And also, if you are on Team Replay, make sure you hit a hashtag replay when you write and type in the comments because I know the comments always get all jumbled up on these live streams and the replays. We are so happy that you're here. If this is your first time here, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on whichever of your preferred platforms you're on. And of course, if you are a recurring visitor, make sure that you subscribe and turn on the notification bells so that you find out when we are live. So today we're here with Isaac Schwadel, who is a licensed insurance broker focused on placing insurance policies for real estate developers, general trade contractors, and real estate owners. Over the last 5+ years with Allsure, he has been involved with placing policies for projects valued upward of $12 billion. That's billion with a B, y'all, not an M. Isaac's mission is to educate clients of their exposure and the best coverage options available. So, Isaac, you have a lot of experience. You're a busy man. Thank you again for being here. For the folks who don't know you, they know who you are now. So let's dive right in. It's 2024. Some people just renewed insurance. Maybe they're about to renew insurance. We're 6 weeks into the year. Depends how people's fiscal year falls. But either way, insurance is always a hot topic in construction. And there's a lot of trends in insurance that folks are not privy to because, most of us, again, we don't follow insurance news, right? We only call the insurance guy or gal when we need to upgrade insurance for a project. So why don't we kick off with some trends in insurance and then backtrack in how you even got into insurance in the first place?
Okay, sure. Okay, so just in order to understand the insurance market, the construction insurance market, and particularly the New York construction insurance market, we have to kind of take a step back and understand New York labor law, New York State labor
Mm-hmm.
law, which has been on the books since before the 1900s. The way I like to explain it to people is, everyone's familiar with the famous picture of everybody the steel workers eating lunch on that steel beam building Rockefeller Center.
Mm-hmm.
When the city was being built at the beginning, unfortunately, safety was not taken into account. You had whoever it was, the developers, the contractors, the steel erection people. People were desperate for jobs. They put them up there with no security.
Right.
Somebody fell, somebody got hurt. They took them off the job and got the next person up there without much, care or value, essentially,
Right.
for people's lives or their injuries. This is before the days of OSHA, and all the other federal safety regulations and inspections and all that, and certifications that came along later. So New York State was the first and essentially the only state that enacted labor laws, which were aimed to protect employees or construction workers that they should have a safe environment. And what that does is, if unfortunately they do get hurt, gives them the right to file a lawsuit against what we refer to as upstream parties, which is usually the general contractor and the owner, who hold the responsibility to provide a safe, and sound work environment. The lawsuits are quite costly.
Yeah.
Typically, typically between 750 and like 3 or 4 million.
Yeah.
But yesterday I was on a call with a large real estate owner, and they are in a lawsuit, a labor law lawsuit and the case finally settled, finally closed. That was awarded. The jury awarded the injured employee $19 million. I kid you not. It's the most that I've ever heard, but that's a lot of money.
It is. It is. He just retired and started his own whatever business, whatever specialty trade he was. Yeah, he just retired and retired his buddies too.
Exactly. The ones who were his quote unquote witnesses. But New York is a very litigious, and New York City specifically is a very litigious area. There's a lot of lawyers around. There's a lot of advertisements, whether it's on the radio, TV, or just the billboards. Specifically, about 2 weeks ago, I went to visit a client, in an area in Queens where there are a lot of contractors, and you drive by the streets, you literally see every billboard there.
Right.
Heard on the job. So there's a lot of the employees are very educated. They get hurt. They're always filing lawsuits. Those lawsuits are expensive. The way people protect themselves, the way the contractors protect themselves, is by having proper insurance. Those claims are expensive, which makes the insurance expensive. So that's the overall market in New York. So there's always carriers coming in, seeing if they can figure out how to properly underwrite and provide policies. Oftentimes it's like a pendulum. There's a carrier comes in, they see these extremely high premiums, like let's get a piece of it. They're here for a couple of years and they realize the claims are even larger. It's not a profitable business, and they get out. So it is, when you talk about trends, there are general trends, national trends in insurance, but New York and New York City specifically is literally an ever-changing and evolving market. There's always new programs, always new carriers coming in, coming out, and it's really something that, working with someone who's experienced in the actual niche of New York City construction. I mean, they can be a New York City insurance broker and they can be an amazing broker for real estate, but if they don't know the specific niche of construction, it can be sometimes difficult to get somebody a policy that either covers all their needs and be them at a price point that kind of makes sense. I say kind of. I'm sorry. You want to ask?
No, you're absolutely right. And, I want to pause right there because there's a lot of people don't know what they don't know. Right. And usually what happens with insurance is very similar to what happens with real estate or accountants or lawyers. You ask a family member or a buddy, hey, do you have so-and-so? Right. And then because that person likes, knows, and trusts them, no due diligence is done. They don't perhaps get multiple quotes or vet out other insurance companies or brokers, et cetera. And in some instances, right, like if you've already worked on projects with certain people and you trust them and they trust their insurance folks, like there's exceptions, right? But I wouldn't go to a family member that doesn't work in construction for an insurance broker for a development or construction project. But again, people don't know what they don't know. Just like I wouldn't go to my cousin Susan, who has a real estate license in a totally different state for a commercial real estate deal in New York, knowing that she does residential houses, right? And I don't have a cousin Susan, so I just made up an avatar, but just for the sake of the example. And the reason that I'm saying this is because you and I came across a situation not too long ago where this person, the general contractor for the project, had been with the insurance carrier or broker for many years and had not made any changes for a long time. And it turned out that that person was not looking out for the best interest of the general contractor and really wasn't doing any research or due diligence, perhaps didn't have a specialty in construction. They meant well, but maybe they just weren't the right person for that company as they grew, right? And so, being this a lunch and learn, what are some of the things that you commonly see, common mistakes, aside of the ones that I just listed, from companies renewing insurance or looking for insurance or looking to save a buck for insurance, because we're all looking to save a buck? And what would your recommendations be instead?
Okay, so I think the the example you brought up is really highlights like you said the need for expertise. And I would say the mistake that I see most often is the mistake that we encounter. Is what happens is you know it's really what it is a combination of the two things you said before. Somebody, for whatever reason, they get connected with an insurance broker. Sometimes what we've seen it is, people either live in a house or they have renters insurance, whatever it is, they have a car, so they deal with somebody. I mean, that's going away a little bit because a lot of people do purchase insurance online. But somebody does have some sort of relationship with an insurance broker, for their what we refer to as personal lines, for their their home, for their car, and then they will say, "Oh, I'm opening up a business, or I have this business and I need insurance," and they'll go to them. And like you said, they could be they're well-meaning.
Right.
They're going to somebody, and the person goes to whoever it is that they work with, and they say, "Oh, I need insurance for this, for whatever this business is," but they don't either A, have access, or B, the knowledge to the full spectrum of the insurance market for construction.
Right.
And what happens is they end up giving them a policy, which is either the two most common responses I get is either that's not possible or that's expensive. And most often, I mean, there are cases where it's not possible and there are cases where it's too expensive, but most often it's not the case. Most often it is possible and it's not too expensive. It's just a matter of looking in the right place. A similar example, that we encountered, I had with a client, a real estate client of mine. They own a large portfolio of commercial buildings, office and retail throughout the 5 boroughs. They're doing a TI, tenant fit out, and the tenant was bringing in their contractor, and obviously, we made them review the policies, and the policies were A, expensive, and B, did not provide the proper coverage. And I told my client, I said, it's not. We had a conversation with the contractor, and without getting into the details of the issues with the policy, the issues were real issues. I mean, the contractor confirmed that there were certain exclusions, and the contractor confirmed that they were doing things that were excluded. And we told the client, I mean, it's always a business decision. I don't, tell people what to do. I just try to inform them of, what exists. And I inform them essentially there's this insurance policy that's really, because of the nature of what and how the GC was operating, there was no coverage.
Right.
And they were obviously concerned. We had back and forth, and then we had a discussion with the GC directly. And I told the GC, I said, I know what you have. We have access to a special program for this type of work. It will be cheaper and better coverage. And he was very hesitant for a similar situation. He has a working relationship with a broker, uses him for a long time. And it was, I'm not going to lie, it was pulling teeth. And I wasn't sure what to do. And I told my client, I said, listen, I don't want to step on anyone's toes or take away from clients, but here's the situation. What they're going to be operating, and there are exclusions that are putting you in a situation of risk, of you're open to specifically these New York labor laws, a labor law claim, which can be very expensive. It's $1 million tenant fit out job, and if you and you're taking a new tenant in, if you have a decent claim that can be $1, $2, $3 million, you're literally left holding the bag, and that jeopardizes the whole project, jeopardizes the actual asset. So
Right.
in the end, the GC, he spoke to his broker, and the broker told him there's nothing else we can do.
Right.
And if they want to get what we want, is going to be crazy expensive. Like literally, those two issues. And I spoke to the GC. He's like, okay, if you think you think you can get something, go for it. And we were able, just to give you in terms of the numbers. So they were doing a general liability policy. It was project specific, meaning it was specifically for this project.
Right.
General liability, and then 5 million umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost of the general liability, for the same cost, we were able to provide general liability and umbrella
Mm-hmm.
with better coverage. So
Right.
it's not me specifically, but to answer your question, how to avoid the mistakes is to have, you're a contractor, you have most of the contractors have a feel, or if you're a developer, you have a feel, when somebody knows the field or not. Have that conversation. Don't be shy. Don't be scared. Talk to the broker. And if you feel like the broker understands and knows, they've been in the field long enough, then that can give you some confidence. That gives you confidence. But if you're not getting that that sense that they that they know what they're feeling, that they've done this before, several whether it's on a large scale or on a smaller scale, like you had mentioned, that
Right.
we literally billions of dollars of construction value. So our agency, we've worked on, without dropping any specific projects, some really, really, I mean, if you look at the past 10 years, the Manhattan skyline has completely
Transformed.
exactly.
And it will continue to do so, as it
Exactly.
always does, as it always does.
So some of those buildings, not all of them, but some of the buildings in the transformation are projects that we've worked on, place those policies. So we're very involved in New York construction in a very, very big way, and people appreciate that. So, and sometimes people say like, oh, I'm not building, whatever it is, a skyscraper, super tall. But the bottom line is if somebody is involved, and it's it is different carriers and it's different things, but if you're involved, then generally, you know the market. And if you're not involved, or only involved in a very small way, then your access and your knowledge are limited, and that ultimately, hurts the client or hurts the developer, whoever it is you're dealing with. So, the short answer to your question is have that conversation. Don't be scared to have the conversation. Ask them for experience. What other projects?
Are you really just saying vet your broker, just like
Yes,
you would vet your sub trades and
exactly.
or your construction manager or anything else? So we're hammering this in this series that folks just need to vet people out. And you nailed it, and pun intended, because everything construction, in that, if you feel as though the person does not have enough experience in the field with what it is that you're doing. For example, we don't do a lot of exterior work here at Glowjoy. Actually, we do zero exterior work. We construction manage, and we work with other project managers that do specialize in that exterior work or MEP work, and that's kind of like their specialty, and then we might holistically manage a project together, right? But that's not something that's like our specialty. So typically when people come to us for that, we're very transparent up front. Like, we focus on interiors. We're more of a remodeling, adaptive reuse type company, and we work with other companies and obviously other trades that need to be vetted, like architects, engineers, lawyers, insurance brokers, title folks, everybody that is involved in a real estate development deal, even if it is a fit out, like you just said. And in New York, a fit out looks very different than it does in a lot of other states. And really, the rest of the country, we're dealing with large buildings here. So even if it's 4 stories high, and there's like a mixed use retail downstairs, you're still pretty much insuring the entire building, right? And responsible for the tenants inside and everything else when you are the contractor doing a fit out. So people don't realize that, because most of the rest of the country has these independent malls, or independent shops and stores. And so it's very different, than here. I have learned, having done owner rep and client work outside of New York. But each state has its own, I have also found, special requirements. We're being very general here today, and obviously you specialize in New York, so we're talking a lot about New York. But overall, so we have vetting out your broker, knowing your market as a part of the insurance. What are other trends that you're seeing in insurance right now, particularly for maybe certain niche sectors, or smaller companies like myself that are trying to move from, little projects, 5 million or less, to projects 5 million plus, and maybe working with developers and larger multifamily projects?
So that it's a great segue from from the previous point to this point.
Yep.
Is that there's a lot of opportunity. We mentioned before we got on. There's a lot of government money coming in, and I think 35 or 30% of that has to go to WMB, to certified contractors. A lot of those contractors are smaller contractors who have some sort of insurance, but the insurance that they have is not going to allow them, to get on site for these larger projects and to
Right.
essentially capitalize on that opportunity.
Hmm.
What they've been told oftentimes by their broker is that to get what you need is going to be very expensive,
Right.
and then they shy away. You have all these. There's so much, even right now. There's so much opportunity, and it's just going to continue increasing
Oh,
for smaller
absolutely.
and certified businesses. And one of the biggest challenges, I've spoken to primes and GCs. One of the biggest challenges from at the top is finding certified contractors who can actually check all the boxes. One of those big boxes that need to be checked is insurance. Over the past 18 months, I've helped several WMB contractors get the insurance they need, so that they can, get involved in these projects. And
Right.
it's it's an investment. I'm not going to say that it's not, that it's not that it's not, that they might have been paying very, very little before, and they are going to be paying to get the proper insurance. The premiums are going to be higher than what they might have been used to. But
Absolutely. But that's growing pains.
exactly.
And you have to spend money to make money. And so I feel like, if we're prospecting and forecasting for the year, which some people don't do that, particularly in construction, but we do, and we change those forecasts and budgets and everything quarterly, you want to put something, just like you would for a marketing budget for an insurance upgrade. Why not?
Absolutely. And what I've seen, the reason why I call it an investment is because the premiums might be larger, but then the projects that you're able to win are significantly larger.
Right.
I'm working on a renewal now for a client who has grown in the last year, has grown their business exponentially. I don't want to give too many details because it's to respect client privacy, but
Of course.
exponential growth in literally in 12 months, because they were able to get the proper insurance, and they were told the reason how they landed in my lap, quote unquote, is because they were with another broker. They knew that they came to this realization that they needed better insurance. They were
Right.
told that there's nothing out there, and and what they want is going to be way
I
too.
know. We've had this
Right.
conversation too, right?
Exactly. And then what happened? And then as fate would have it, we connected, and we were able to get them something, and it's really, really, again, helped their business grow exponentially. So in terms of trends, I don't know if it's so much a trend in insurance per se, but more a trend in the construction industry, specifically in New York and specifically New York City. New York City is also pushing, all the various cities, the alphabet soup of city agencies are pushing. I think they all, the grades they all got for, including WMBE, certified business. For those who aren't familiar, WMBE stands for Women or Minority Owned Businesses.
Right.
There's a certification given by either the city, the state, or in some, individual, like the Port Authority, some individual, I don't know what you want to call it, organizations or
Yeah, entities, MTA. I mean, there's
right.
a whole bunch of them. We're certified with the city and we're certified Westchester County. We're also certified in Connecticut, like the state of Connecticut. But we don't have, the state. We don't have there's a disadvantaged business
Right.
certification. There's a veteran. I'm not a veteran, but if you are a veteran, you can get certified as a veteran-owned business. There's a disabled, people with disabilities certification as well, because there are certain business and sectors that also have requirements for that. So I think of these certifications, and most of them are national. They're part of, I think, a larger program to maybe set aside, as they call them, projects for businesses who typically wouldn't get invited to the table. So we being an MWBE and being in not just the city, but also Westchester County, as you mentioned, have been getting a lot of bid requests lately. And it's been overwhelming and kind of spammy in many ways. You have to almost have a full-time person to filter through some of that stuff. And then you have to have trusted partners like yourself and others, like strong contracts and lawyers, to make sure that you don't get, excuse my French, screwed by a prime, and ensure that you're able to upgrade insurance on a project basis or when the time comes. There's a lot of things also I have found that never materialize in that space, just because you have to read the fine print. Is it required that they hire an MBE or MWBE or whatever, or do they need to make a valiant effort? Because if they make a valiant effort and still turn around and hire the next person, what does a valiant effort mean? And to your point, sometimes I think they do make a valiant effort, and people like myself, at least last year, I wasn't ready to take on any of these bigger projects from a insurance perspective, and also just from operational perspective, right? I wanted to have some things in place from a technology point, and also kind of try to streamline some of the sales to project to close out operations so we could take on projects. So it's been, I think I froze a little bit. But it's been a journey, at least for me. And I know that there's a lot of small business owners that watch from my side, that maybe aren't in a position to upgrade their insurance at the moment. So let's talk a little bit, about percentages. I don't want to talk about numbers, but maybe we could talk about percentages of what people might be able to set aside if they're looking at upgrading their insurance for this next fiscal year, because a lot of people will turn over at the same time as the government, which is in June. So it's February. They have plenty of time to plan for this if that's when, they want to make that turn. And also, to your point, you could be paying a certain premium right now and be able to upgrade your insurance, paying the exact same amount without any penalties whatsoever, and get way better insurance than what you have right now. And that's simply based off of capability of who you're dealing with, right? And that's with everything. Real estate is a perfect example. And I know a lot of people who are tuning in from your side are probably from the real estate side as well. So if you hire a broker who doesn't understand multifamily, doesn't understand new development, and only understands commercial fit outs or leasing, then you're doing yourself a disservice when you're going to the negotiation table for absolutely anything that you're doing. And it's the same thing with the broker. You know, your network is very, very important in this industry, and you and I know a lot of the same people.
Yes.
And you know, we are very much networked even here in New York in a very, very small, close circle, because construction is small. And if you are of value, you're like a part of this like very small circle or pocket of circles, you know. And some of them are industry specific or borough specific or what have you. But New York real estate and construction is small. And I am learning now that even the national real estate, working with franchises and larger primes, is also very small. It's also very small.
Yes. I mean, the real estate in New York is actually very big, large, but the people are, the
Yeah, yeah.
community
The
is small.
people, the network is
That's the irony. The irony, people think like, oh, it's, I mean, there's all these buildings, and there are a lot of people involved. Don't get me wrong. But, like we mentioned earlier, doing a lot of networking and, moving in a lot of, you think you're moving in a lot of different circles, and then you go to different events or go to different, in different situations, and you are seeing the same people. There are new people, but you're seeing the same people over and over again.
absolutely.
So it's it is a small world,
Mhm.
and just that sort of, again, ties into everything that we're talking about. If somebody wants to get involved or is involved, it is a small world, and doing the vetting, doing the research is not as difficult. Some people find that that task daunting. It's like, what do I know about insurance? What do I know about I
It's just
know.
scary, you know. And for me, at least I can talk for myself and my peers. It is. It's scary. It's the same thing as hiring an accountant or a lawyer. Like,
Right.
it's very sensitive part of your business, and you have to literally lay it all out. And you have to open your books. You have to open your contracts. You have to be super transparent. And for some people, you know, we've been so busy and working and growing our business, maybe we're not as organized as we thought we needed to be. So I know that I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We're on a lunch and learn. We've been on for about 30 minutes. So I want folks to know what type of paperwork do they need to like have together or have organized when they are going through the underwriting process for insurance. Because one of the biggest mistakes that I see, and I have made this mistake myself, is you're ready to upgrade for project specific insurance, and then, uh-oh, you don't have everything that you need. So, what are some things that newbies and or veterans in the industry can have together in like a package so that when they are ready or they have a specific project they want to go for, they can have something that is good to go.
Okay, that's a great question. And there's two answers, because, like you mentioned, there's when it comes to construction insurance, there's really two directions to go. For larger projects, we would go with project specific, which is,
Right.
for those unfamiliar, is an insurance policy specifically for a specific location, and it will not cover the contractor
Anything else?
at anywhere else. And then there's what we refer to as a practice policy or an annual policy, which is a policy that covers the contractor, whether it's a general contractor or a trade contractor, wherever they may be. So let's start with the practice policy, the annual policy, which is more common, for trades and smaller GCs, unless they're doing very, very large projects, or larger projects.
Right.
It's really, it's, again, it might seem overwhelming, but it's really not that many things. It's about, like you said, being organized and keeping good records. So when we what we call submit, an account to an underwriter, there's a lot of information that we put together, but that's that happens on our side. But what we need from the contractor is their loss history, which is
Mm-hmm.
loss runs, which you can
Right.
either reach out to your carrier, reach out to your broker, wherever you want to get that. It's helpful always, if you can, to have a full copy of your current policy, just so we see. Some people think going back to the example that we were talking about earlier, that particular situation, the the contractor was under a certain impression, and then we looked at the policy in terms of certain details of the policy, and it was very different than what they thought. So
Right.
a copy of the policy to really understand what coverage, and the rates and everything that you have now in place, so we can formulate a proper plan to go forward. So it's
Hmm.
also runs a copy of the policy. A lot of underwriters are going to ask for a WIP, a work in progress list, just to kind of get an idea of the size and scope of the projects that the individual contractor is doing. Oftentimes, they'll ask for what's called a supplemental application, which is again just a little bit more detail into the specific operations. Different brokers operate that differently. The way we do it is that I'll review it. Some brokers will just email it and say, please fill this out.
Right.
I find just for expedience sake, is that we'll send it, but we'll then take 5 or 10 minutes and just run through the questions and review it. Do it together. I just feel that we sometimes the questions are formulated, or they use language that's a little bit more on the insurance jargon side than
Oh
construction.
yeah, it's confusing.
Right,
I'll say it.
right,
We don't have to
exactly.
be PC. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a little bit confusing. You don't know what they're asking you, and you might
Exactly,
answer it incorrectly and shoot
exactly,
yourself on the foot,
exactly.
and have to
So
pay a lot more than you need to for your policy. So yeah,
exactly.
no, I'll say
So
it.
yeah, so we'll review that, and then there's projected the way carriers measure exposure of a contractor,
Right.
meaning more risk or less risk, is either based on payroll or annual sales.
Right.
So to have both those numbers, again, it doesn't have to be, it's projected, meaning because it's from whenever your renewal is, for a full year after that. It doesn't have to be 1,000% accurate, but it should be, ballpark, as ballpark as you can be. And then to get the process started, that's really all you need. Oftentimes, what happens, contractor, is depending on how the loss runs look. If there were losses, they'll want to know details, they'll want to know what happened, and that those are questions that come after. In New York, again, because of labor law, we've seen more and more underwriters asking for workers' compensation loss runs, because that's very connected with with labor law. And again, if there are losses, they'll want to know the details of what happened. But that's kind of step two. To get things started, again, is a copy of the policy, loss runs, projected annual sales, projected annual payroll, and then again a description, at the supplemental application, or if the particular carrier is not asking for that, a brief description of your operations. One thing I do want to point out,
Okay.
for anybody listening, and this is super important, it's not something that you have to hand in, or that we submit, but it's something that underwriters look at, and can go either way when it comes to a quote, is to make sure that your online presence.
That was gonna be my last
Oh,
question. Let's
go
talk
for it.
about social media real
Yes.
quick. All
Okay.
right.
So ask the question, and we'll
Yeah,
see.
no, you were headed right there. So, we're gonna wrap this up, but this is like very important. We are on multiple social media platforms today. Okay. So the first thing I'm gonna say is, obviously, Isaac's in New York, I'm in New York. Check with your local insurance brokers. This is all based off of our experience, and we're not giving you advice for your business specific or any project specifically. So that's number one. Because we got to cover ourselves legally, right? And then number two, let's talk about social media and your social media presence as a contractor, subcontractor, consultant, what have you, in the construction industry, and what that needs to look like or not need to look like more
Exactly.
specifically.
So the example I like to give, I don't sell life insurance at all. I'm not even licensed. I only do property and casualty. But something that everybody can relate to is that people know that for certain size life insurance policies, they will look at your social media, and if they see that you're jumping out of planes, doing extreme sports, they will deny
Flag
coverage,
that.
right? Deny coverage or make it very expensive. That's something that everybody can understand.
Right.
That translates very much into liability insurance for contractors. And
Absolutely.
what that means is if you're telling us that you're a painter, and then you're posting on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever it is, Facebook, that you're, I don't know, doing steel erection or excavation foundation, the underwriters will find that, they will question that, and it doesn't fly, right? So that's
right.
so again, and that's understandable. If you're saying X and it's Y, but where it becomes really gray, and people don't understand this, and underwriters don't understand it either, both ends, is the size and scope of the jobs that you're doing. In other words,
Right.
your website and your web presence should be an accurate reflection of what you are doing.
Right.
Have this, kind of tiff, I guess, with clients all the time. It should be an accurate portrayal of what you are doing, not of what you can do or want to do. And
Okay.
the reason for that is that you'll put up a website and you'll make yourself look like, oh, I've had this, right? A fellow was small, talk about he was a WMBE contractor. He paid somebody to make him a beautiful website because he needed to bid on a few jobs, and the website made him look like he was I won't say the exact trade, but an interior trade, and made it look like he did massive projects. And it was literally him. I think him, his son, and his nephew was the entire company.
Right.
And underwriters kept on coming back. Like we said before, the way they measure exposure is by sales and payroll, or sales or payroll. And we gave them the sales, and they're like, "How could it be that you're telling me that this guy's doing $500,000 a year in sales? We look at his website; it looks like this, tremendous corporate company." And it was a struggle. And I told the guy, I said, "You really have to, scale it back," and in the end, we were able to work it out. But it happens over and over and over.
So fake it till you make it does not work for the insurance construction world.
Exactly. Because what happens, because it's a narrative. The way
it is.
The way the underwriters are looking at it, they're trusting us as the broker that the information and the conversation that we're having with them is accurate. But obviously, they have to verify that. So with Google and online, and the internet, it's made their job a lot easier.
Way easier.
And what happens is, they look and I'll tell you another example that we had, which was more like, unfortunate almost, is that we had a contractor who was on a job site, and it was a large job site, a high-rise building in downtown Brooklyn. And there were cranes on the site. And again, to protect the client's privacy, I won't get into the exact details of what they did, but what they were doing could have either been done by crane or not by crane. They could have been doing it through the interiors, and they do it through the interior of the building. They have special systems within the inside of the building. But on Facebook, they posted a picture. Oh, look at, we are on this
whatever
project.
crane. Yeah.
And there were cranes all over the project, and the underwriter, it was back and forth for 4 weeks, and they said, we just don't feel comfortable. We don't feel comfortable. So it's again, and there they didn't really do anything wrong per se. They didn't say that they were using the cranes, but you have to be very, very careful, and it's a balance. And I get it, because social media is a lot of people's exposure, especially for a growing business, is a way you get exposure. People work very hard. People pay people, to manage their social media. It is something it is a worthwhile investment, and a website, to have a nice website. But
absolutely,
if you can keep it accurate, is just so key in order to get a favorable outcome.
And I'll say this as the owner of formerly owner of a branding company. If you're using stock photography, number one, make sure that you paid for your stock photography, because you don't need people coming after you for stealing photos. But number two, if you are using stock photography on your website, label that it's stock photography, because that will help the people that are underwriters and others that are looking at your website understand that that's not specifically your photo or like your job site. It is a stock photo. Same thing with social media. You know, we have a lot of clauses in our contracts where we're not even allowed to post the job sites or the jobs that we work with. And a lot of that is probably insurance based on the prime and or the developers have, right? They don't want it out there. And it's not that they don't trust us, but you know, maybe a member of the team that doesn't know what they don't know might, like you said, post a picture or selfie of them and there's a bunch of cranes in the background and then bam, right? So I always tell folks, if they are using, you know, stock video or stock photography, or if it's not their job site, maybe put that in the caption, or in the description. We use a lot of photos or memes or videos, and things of that nature that don't belong to us. So, you know, we'll put all rights reserved to its original owner. And that really helps underwriters and others understand. And I know a lot about underwriting coming from a banking background, you know, that these are things that they look at. And it's really, really important to protect yourself. And I understand as well, you know, we get leads from social media. People are tuning into these shows and checking out the replays and reaching out to us as experts, you know, for certain things that we talk about. And so I understand, you know, I understand that we need to put ourselves out there. That's the whole reason for even having this show, right? So I have content for my social media editors that, you know, they can repurpose and reuse, and so that we can also educate the general public. But at the same time, if I'm talking about a project that's not mine, or a project where I'm in a, you know, consultant role, or a project where we're not the builder, or we're, like I mentioned, we don't do exterior work, so that's never going to be us, we'll notate it. And we've had some amazing folks in the construction industry tune in today. We had Michelle Hayward, which commented just recently on what we're talking about, picture courtesy of Canva and stock photos, right? So a lot of people use Canva and they have stock photos on Canva. So you can just credit the picture, you know, to wherever it is that you got it from. That's such a good tip. So it's 12:47. We are 2 or 3 minutes past our scheduled end time, Isaac. So I want to be respectful of your time. You have given us a wealth of information that you probably get paid for. So thank you again also for sharing all this valuable information and for sharing so many gems with our audience and your audience that has been tuning in. Where can people find you? How can they connect with you if they have follow-up questions? I feel like we could talk about insurance for the rest of the afternoon.
Yes. If anybody wants to, you know, once I told you, Gloria, before we started, once I start, it's difficult to stop.
Yeah.
But you know, but I do have a call I must get on. But LinkedIn, I'm pretty active. You know, depending on what's going on. You know, either more active or a little bit less active, but definitely very present on LinkedIn. You can just, you know, shoot me a DM and we'll connect there. I can put out my email address. Is Schwadel, so that's the letter I, S as in Sam, CHWA, D as in David, EL, at Allshore, so that's ALLSURE, and then INS.com. You can reach me either one of those two ways, and look forward. You know, if anyone has any questions, you know, feel free to ask. I know insurance can be intimidating and can be, you know, oftentimes people's eyes, you know, glaze over when you start talking about it, but it doesn't have to.
We just like look away and we're like, yeah, you know,
right. But it doesn't have to be. And I really, I work hard when I am working with my clients to make it, you know, to use as little insurance jargon as possible and to really have them understand, you know, the concepts and what it is, the risk is, you know, like we introduced, what is the risk is and what the options are to protect yourself against those risks. So, you know, feel free to reach out. And Gloria, I really appreciate, you know, you giving me this opportunity to, you know, throw some gems out to a wider audience.
Absolutely, folks. So you heard it here. Isaac DMs are open. You can follow him on LinkedIn. Are you on any other social media platforms, Isaac?
No,
No
no.
other social media platforms. So if you are tuning in from my other platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and or watching a clip or something on Instagram, you can DM me for Isaac's email, or you can check the show notes afterwards. And we will also have Isaac's email on here and LinkedIn profile. If you are not on LinkedIn, you are missing out, friends. There's a lot of business to be had on LinkedIn. And I myself have made well over 6 figures in 1 year alone, just based off of LinkedIn connections, networking, and all of that stuff. So I can tell you that the power of LinkedIn is absolutely real. We have an online networking event at all times. It does require, time and attention. However, if you're going to take the time and attention to go to a physical event, again, I'm a construction manager by trade and project manager by trade. Make it a part of your schedule, block it out, right? And make sure that you join us, and not just on LinkedIn, but follow up outside of that. And if you are, in the same circle or even in the same town or tri-state, try to meet up with these people and network outside of the online community, because you just never know. I had a mechanical contractor actually call us out of the blue yesterday because they liked our content on LinkedIn, and they wanted to know if we had any projects that they could be a part of with us. And so that was really cool. It was so random, and it was like so cool at the same time. So folks, if you are catching the replay, again, we want to thank you for catching the replay. We are going to ask you one last time to make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. Make sure that you share this video. If you found this video informative, share it on your feed so that other people in construction, or share it in your groups so that other people in construction can learn a little bit more about insurance. I feel so much smarter after today's session, way smarter after today's session. And that's one of my favorite things about construction, is that we get to learn so much. So thank you so much, Isaac. Really appreciate you for your time. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.